The quiet hum of the refrigerator had become the loudest sound in Agnes's small house since Arthur was gone. For 42 years, his steady presence had filled the rooms, his gentle snoring, the clatter of his teacup in the morning, the low murmur of the news from the television. Now only silence remained, heavy and thick as the dust that settled on unused surfaces. Agnes was 72. Her hands, once nimble and quick, now trembled slightly with the weight of grief and uncertainty. She had lived a good life, a safe life, built brick by brick with Arthur. They hadn't had many adventures or chased wild dreams. Their dreams were simple: a comfortable home, enough to live on, quiet evenings together. And for Agnes, that had always felt like enough. Almost always. Deep within her, tucked away like a forgotten treasure chest in the attic of her soul, lay a yearning for color, for texture, for the intricate dance of threads. As a young woman before Arthur, before the sensible job at the library, she had discovered weaving. Not just simple placemats or scarves, but complex patterns, stories told in yarn, vibrant tapestries that seemed to breathe with a life of their own. Her grandmother, a woman with hands gnarled but magical, had taught her. Hours were spent in a small shed behind the house, the rhythmic clack-clack of the loom a comforting lullaby. But life had called her towards practicality. Her parents, kind but cautious, reminded her that art was lovely, but stability paid the bills. The library job offered a pension, health insurance, a predictable future. Arthur, bless his steady heart, understood her love for weaving, but never quite grasped the depth of her need for it. It was a hobby, wasn't it? A pleasant way to pass the time. Her loom, a sturdy second-hand beauty, was carefully dismantled and stored in the attic after she married, deemed too large for their first small home, then later, simply forgotten amidst the comfortable routine of their lives. Now the house felt too large, too full of ghosts and silence. The decision was made with heavy heart and practical necessity. She had to sell, downsizing, a word that felt like shrinking, like disappearing. Selling meant going through everything. 42 years of accumulated life. The attic was a journey into the past. Boxes of old photos, Arthur's fishing gear, Christmas decorations, and in a far corner, under a dusty tarp, the dismantled loom. It looked sad, forlorn, its beautiful wooden frame like skeletal remains. Agnes ran a hand over the smooth, aged wood. A pang, sharp and unexpected, pierced through her. It wasn't just wood and metal. It was possibility, a life not lived. She couldn't just discard it. But where would it go? The new place, a small apartment, certainly wouldn't have space for such a bulky relic of a forgotten dream. Sorting through Arthur's workshop in the garage was another task. He collected things. Oh, how he collected things. Old tools, bits of metal, jars of screws, things he swore would be useful one day. Among the organized chaos, Agnes found a small wooden box filled with spools of thread, not plain sewing thread, but vibrant, shimmering embroidery floss and small packets of tiny beads. Arthur had never mentioned these. Had he perhaps thought of taking up a new hobby? Or were they meant for her, a forgotten gift? The mystery brought a soft ache to her chest. She decided to call Mr. Abernathy. Everyone in town knew Mr. Abernathy and his antique shop, curios and keepsakes. He had a reputation for being fair, and more importantly, for having a kind eye. He saw the story behind the objects, not just their price tag. Mr. Abernathy arrived on a Tuesday morning, a man in his late 60s with spectacles perched on the end of his nose and a perpetually curious tilt to his head. He moved slowly through the house, his gaze lingering on items Agnes had barely noticed herself. He handled things with reverence. A chipped teacup, a faded photograph, Arthur's old radio. When they reached the garage, he peered into the wooden box of threads. "Ah, yes," he murmured, picking up a spool of forest green. "These are lovely. A collector's eye for color, your Arthur had." "I didn't know he had these," Agnes said, feeling a peculiar tenderness towards the man she had shared her life with, discovering this small, hidden facet of him now. Then she showed him the loom parts stacked in the attic. Mr. Abernathy ran his hands over the beams, examining the joints. "A fine loom, Agnes," he said, his voice laced with genuine appreciation. Not a simple one either. This was built for serious work. Looks like a Harmony model. Turn of the century, maybe? A beauty. Do you still? Agnes shook her head. Not in decades, Mr. Abernathy. I don't have the space now. I suppose. I suppose it will have to go. The words felt like a betrayal, a final bearing of that young woman and her vibrant dreams. Mr. Abernathy was quiet for a moment, polishing his spectacles. It seems a terrible shame, he said slowly, to let such a magnificent instrument fall silent. He paused, looking at Agnes with those kind, discerning eyes. You know, Agnes, I have that little workshop space behind the shop. Barely use it myself these days, mostly just for storage. But it's dry, has good light from that skylight. It belonged to Alara before me. Agnes looked at him blankly. Alara? Alara Vance, Mr. Abernathy smiled faintly. A local treasure, passed away about 10 years ago. She was a weaver, a magnificent one. Her tapestries, they were legend around here. Bold, bright, full of life. She used that workshop for years, said the light was just right. She always said a loom needed a room with a view, or at least with sky above. He paused, the thoughts seeming to form as he spoke. It's full of my junk now, I'm afraid, but the loom would fit. There's even a big old workbench she left behind. Wouldn't take much to clear it out. And honestly, Agnes, he gestured toward the loom parts, seeing this fine Harmony going to, well, to just anywhere, it bothers my soul a little. What if you use the space? Just to see? Get the loom set up again? It would make Alara happy, I think, and keep this beauty singing. Agnes was stunned. The practical voice in her head screamed about being 72, about starting over, about the sheer impossibility of it all. But the quiet voice, the one that remembered the clack-clack in the vibrant colors, whispered, possibility. I couldn't possibly, Mr. Abernathy, she stammered. I wouldn't want to be a bother, and I haven't woven in so long. Nonsense, he said gently. It would be a pleasure, a service even, to keep Alara's space alive. And if you decide it's not for you, no harm done. We'll figure something else out for the loom then. But give it a chance, Agnes. Give yourself a chance. He wrote down his address, the one for the shop. Any afternoon you like, just come round, I'll be there. That night, curled in her too-big bed, Agnes couldn't sleep. The loom, Alara, a sunlit workshop. It felt like a fairy tale, or perhaps a temptation she was too old to indulge. Fear gnawed at her. Fear of failure. Fear of making a fool of herself. Fear of stepping out of the safe, predictable box her life had become. Arthur wouldn't have understood, she thought. He would have worried. Is it sensible, Agnes? Are you sure this is wise? But Arthur wasn't here to worry anymore. And maybe, just maybe, sensible and wise weren't the only ways to live. 2 days later, driven by a hesitant curiosity stronger than her fear, Agnes found herself standing in front of Curious and Keepsakes. The shop was exactly as she imagined, filled with fascinating clutter, the air smelling of old wood and beeswax. Mr. Abernathy greeted her with a warm smile and led her through a narrow passage at the back, past stacks of furniture and dusty boxes, into a small, separate building. He pushed open a door and Agnes stepped inside. It wasn't grand, but it was perfect. A single room, surprisingly spacious, with a large skylight flooding the center with soft, natural light. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams. Against one wall stood a sturdy, well-used workbench, stained with what looked like old paint or dye. Shelves lined another wall, mostly empty now, save for a few forgotten jars and a tangle of colorful, stiffened threads. The air held a faint, comforting scent, a mix of old wood, something earthy, and a whisper of color. See, Mr. Abernathy said. Good light. Alara swore by it. She said color changes its mind depending on the light, and you have to let it decide what it wants to be. He chuckled. Eccentric, but brilliant. He pointed to a corner. Plenty of space for the loom. I'll help you bring it over whenever you're ready. No rush, mind you. Just having the space, knowing it's here, can be a start. He left her there in the quiet, sunlit room. Agnes walked slowly around, touching the workbench, peering at the dust-covered shelves. On the bench, half hidden under a layer of dust, she found a small, smooth stone, worn soft by handling, and next to it, a few scraps of paper. They weren't formal notes, but quick sketches. A design for a border, a study of light on water, a vibrant splash of color with a note scrawled next to it. Marigold sun, and another, the whisper of twilight blue. These were Alara's thoughts, her captured moments of inspiration. Agnes felt a connection across the years, a silent conversation beginning. This space wasn't just a room. It was a repository of creative energy, waiting. A tremor ran through her. Could she really do this? Could she shake off the dust of decades and find that rhythm again? The clack-clack that felt like breathing? The fear returned, whispering doubts. You're too old. Your hands aren't steady. What will people think? It's impractical. It's foolish. She didn't commit that day. She thanked Mr. Abernathy profusely and left, the address for the workshop clutched in her hand. But the image of the sunlit room, the dusty loom parts, and the marigold sun note stayed with her. It was a seed planted in dry earth, waiting for rain. The rain came slowly, in drips of courage. Agnes sold the house. She moved into the small apartment. It was clean, modern, and soulless. There was no space for her history, it seemed, only for a simplified, streamlined present. The longing for texture, for color, for the feel of yarn running through her fingers grew almost unbearable in the sterile quiet of the apartment. One damp afternoon, weeks after she'd moved, she found herself driving towards Mr. Abernathy's shop. She parked the car and walked determinedly to the back. Mr. Abernathy saw her coming and simply smiled, opening the workshop door. "Thought you might come," he said softly. Together, slowly, carefully, they transported the loom parts from her old garage to the workshop. It took time and effort, but there was a quiet satisfaction in handling the familiar wood, feeling the weight of it. Mr. Abernathy helped her assemble it. His hands were strong, knowledgeable, and he seemed to understand the mechanics intuitively. As the frame came together, piece by piece, the loom began to look less like a skeleton and more like a promise. Setting it up in the sunlit corner of the workshop felt like bringing it home. The large window, not quite a view, but it overlooked a tangle of green behind the shop, and the skylight filled the space with light, just as Alara had cherished. Agnes spent the next few days cleaning the workshop. She swept away the dust, wiped down the shelves, and scrubbed the workbench. She found more small treasures, empty spools, a shuttle with a cracked handle, a handful of smooth river stones Alara must have used as weights, and a small faded piece of woven fabric tucked into a crack in the wall. It was a complex pattern, faded but beautiful, a tiny fragment of Alara's skill. Agnes pinned it to the wall beside the sketches. Then came the yarn. Agnes had kept a few boxes of her old yarn, tucked away with the loom parts. They were mostly practical colors, creams, browns, muted greens, and blues suitable for the sensible items she used to make. But now, looking at Alara's marigold sun note, she felt a hunger for vibrancy. She went to the local craft store. It was overwhelming. Aisles and aisles of color. She tentatively bought a few skeins, a fiery red, a deep violet, a shocking turquoise. Bringing them back to the workshop, she arranged them on a shelf, and they seemed to pulse with energy in the sunlight. Threading the loom felt both familiar and foreign. Her fingers fumbled at first, forgetting the intricate dance of the warp and weft. Doubts crowded in. "You can't do this. It's too hard. You're out of practice." But she persevered. Slowly the rhythm returned, the clack-clack of the shuttle passing through the shed, the gentle tension as she beat the weft into place. It was a physical meditation, a dance between her body and the machine. The first piece was small, uneven, the edges wobbly, but it was hers, created, real. She showed it to Mr. Abernathy. He held it in his hands, his eyes warm. "Lovely, Agnes," he said genuinely. "A beginning." He didn't ask about selling things, didn't pressure her. He simply offered quiet encouragement. Sometimes he would tap lightly on the workshop door and bring her a cup of tea, sitting for a few minutes on an old stool, talking about Alara or the curios in his shop, or simply sitting in companionable silence as Agnes worked. His presence was a gentle anchor, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this new uncertain venture. Agnes began to spend most of her days at the workshop. The apartment was just a place to sleep. The workshop was where she lived. She experimented with colors inspired by Alara's notes and the world outside the window. The shifting greens of the trees, the blues and grays of the sky, the unexpected flash of a bird's feather. She used the threads Arthur had collected, weaving in touches of shimmer and sparkle that surprised her. It felt like weaving him into the fabric of her new life, acknowledging his presence not as a constraint, but as part of her journey. Her skill returned, sharper now, infused with a lifetime of unspoken creativity. Her pieces became more confident, the patterns flowing, the colors singing. She wasn't just weaving fabric, she was weaving stories, emotions, the quiet beauty she saw in the world. One afternoon, a customer in Mr. Abernathy's shop admired a small, woven coaster Agnes had left on the workbench. Mr. Abernathy, without making a fuss, mentioned Agnes made them. The customer asked if she sold them. Agnes, heart pounding, said she hadn't thought about it. Mr. Abernathy suggested she bring a few pieces into the shop. Hesitantly, she did. Small scarves, colorful wall hangings, intricate bookmarks. Mr. Abernathy displayed them near the front counter. To her astonishment, they started to sell, not quickly, but steadily. People appreciated the quality, the unique designs, the sense that each piece was made with care. The small income was a relief, but the real reward was the validation. Someone valued her work. Someone saw the beauty she was creating and wanted to take it home. The fear, while still a shadow, no longer held her captive. She was doing it. She was living her passion. She started taking small commissions. A scarf in specific colors for a gift, a wall hanging to match a room's decor. She even wove a christening blanket, feeling the profound connection to the generations of women who had crafted for their loved ones. Each project was a joy, a challenge, a new opportunity to learn and grow. As her confidence grew, Agnes felt a deep well of gratitude towards Mr. Abernathy and, in a way, towards Alara. They had given her this space, this chance. She wanted to create something special, something that expressed this profound thank you. She decided to create a large tapestry for Mr. Abernathy's shop window, something that would catch the light and draw people in, just as the light in the workshop had drawn her. She wanted it to represent connection, the passage of time, and the unexpected ways beauty finds its way into the world. She spent weeks planning the design. It incorporated motifs inspired by Alara's sketches, the marigold sun, the twilight blue, the delicate lines of light. She added elements from her own life, the comforting pattern of rain on a window pane, the strong, simple shape of a key, the intertwined threads representing lives woven together. At the center, she planned a complex knot pattern, symbolizing the intricate ties that bind people across time and space. She chose her finest threads, including some of the shimmering floss Arthur had left behind. Weaving the tapestry was a labor of love. It was challenging, requiring all her skill and concentration. But as the design emerged, thread by thread, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known in years. It was more than a piece of weaving. It was a culmination, a gift of self. Finally, after months of work, it was finished. It was larger than anything she had woven before, a vibrant cascade of color and pattern, shimmering slightly in the light. She carefully took it off the loom, the weight of it satisfying in her hands. She rolled it gently and carried it to the front of Mr. Abernathy's shop one sunny afternoon. He was polishing a grandfather clock. "Mr. Abernathy," Agnes said softly. He turned, his eyes widening, as he saw the roll of fabric in her arms. "Agnes, what have we here?" It's for you," she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "For the shop, as a thank you, for the space, for your kindness, for everything." She unrolled the tapestry slowly, letting it hang before him in the sunlight streaming through the shop window. The colors seemed to ignite, the patterns revealing themselves with breathtaking clarity. Mr. Abernathy stood motionless, his spectacles slightly askew, his gaze fixed on the woven artwork. He reached out a hand, his fingers brushing lightly against the threads. He followed the lines of the design, the flow of color. Agnes saw his eyes soften, saw the flicker of recognition at the Alara-inspired motifs, the appreciation for the intricate knotwork. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Agnes, this is magnificent." He didn't say more for a long moment, simply gazing at the tapestry. Alara, she would have loved this. Absolutely loved it. He looked at Agnes, his eyes shining. "You've brought such life back into that space, and well, into things." Agnes felt tears welling up. "You gave me the chance, Mr. Abernathy, the courage to start again." He smiled, a deep, heartfelt smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "We all just need a little space, Agnes, and sometimes a little nudge towards the light." Ilara understood that. "I just held the door open." He paused, looking from the tapestry to Agnes. "This isn't just a thank you, is it? This is a continuation, a thread running from her, through me, to you, and now, shared with the world." He insisted on hanging the tapestry in the large front window of the shop. It transformed the space, casting colorful patterns on the floor as the sun moved across the sky. People stopped to look, drawn by its beauty and vibrancy. It became a talking point, a symbol of the shop and of Agnes's presence in the town's creative landscape. Agnes's life was full now. The quiet of her apartment was no longer empty, but a peaceful counterpoint to the busy rhythm of her days. She had a purpose, a community of fellow crafters she met at local fairs, and the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful with her hands every day. She still visited the workshop, the scent of wood and yarn, a comforting embrace, the sunlight through the skylight, a constant inspiration. She kept Alara's sketches and notes pinned to the wall, a silent mentor reminding her to see the color in the world. It wasn't the life she had planned, not the safe, predictable path she had walked for so long. It was richer, more uncertain, and infinitely more rewarding. She had faced her fears, the fear of starting over, the fear of inadequacy, the fear of stepping out from the shadows. And in doing so, she had found herself. Agnes, now known in the community for her beautiful weaving, often thought of Arthur, not with sorrow, but with a quiet understanding. His collection of colorful threads, his unintended legacy, had been a small, silent push toward this new path. Looking at her hands, no longer just hands that kept a tidy home or sorted library books, but hands that created beauty, hands stained occasionally with dye, hands that brought threads to life, she knew that Mr. Abernathy was right. Life wasn't over. It was simply unfolding in unexpected patterns. And it was never too late to find the courage to pick up the threads of a forgotten dream and weave something new, something vibrant, something that sang in the light. The clack-clack of the loom was no longer just noise. It was the sound of a life being lived, fully and beautifully, one colorful thread at a time.